Welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited today to introduce you guys to someone I have met through social media, but we have a lot of common connections, some mutual connections. Are you from Albuquerque, Meg,
No,
originally?
no, my dad was in the military and then in the FBI, so we moved a lot, but I went to high school there and
She
then
went to
went
high
away to
school.
college and then came back and married my husband there.
Okay. Yeah, so we have some overlap there. She graduated from my rival high school. But we have some mutual friends, and I was introduced to Meg because I was looking for a speaker for our writer's block retreat. And it just kind of created just a fun little Voxer friendship. We've gotten to know each other online. And so, welcome, Meg. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me. What was your high school again?
I went to Sandia.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely remember.
Sandia and La Cueva were like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
All the good odds. And then
not,
El Dorado. You throw in El Dorado in there.
that's right. Yeah. That's
Oh,
so
it's so good to
funny.
be here. I was going to sit out on my deck too, but I have a rooster that's obnoxiously loud. We call him Lucifer. So I'm quiet in this room.
I just have marine helicopters that fly over, so I stay on mute.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Where are
Well,
you?
San Diego.
Okay.
yeah, we've got people representing all over the country right now. But so Meg, tell us a little bit about you and tell us about your family, tell us about your writing life, those kind of things.
Wow, you just opened like three cans right there, all at the same time.
Right.
So my name's Meg. I am married to a man named Matt. He has been a pastor for over 25 years. We met and married in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's not from there though. He's from Oklahoma. And when we met, I was at school in Oklahoma, and then he was the youth pastor that had been hired while I was away at college at my parents' church. So I came home to visit and got to meet him. So we were married in Albuquerque, and after the first couple years of being married, all of our friends had started to have kids, and we thought, oh, that'd be nice. Let's have kids too. And that did not at all go as planned. We struggled with infertility for a couple years, which now, if you were to see a family picture, you'd laugh at because we have 7 children now. The first 4 were born in Albuquerque. Then we moved to Orange County, so kind of near you in San Diego. Had 1 there, and then now we're in South Texas, and we had 2 more here. So full family, full home, full
Full
heart,
quiver.
all the things.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
that's
But
so
writing, when we were living in Orange County, we were a part of a really large church. It was a really public affair. For years, I never even talked about it because it was just too hard. But if you're familiar with the church, Mars Hill Church with Pastor Mark Driscoll, my husband was the lead pastor at the Huntington Beach location. And when that crumbled, I mean, it rocked our world. It had nothing to do with us, it had nothing to do with our personal story, but we were greatly impacted by that. And so after that church closed, I just started writing kind of as a hobby, almost like I got to do something. Like I need to have some type of creative outlet. So I did have 5 kids at home at the time, but for me, it was sort of this act of worship. Like I just need to get my mind wrapped around all these hard things that are happening. And so I would just write almost like a journal entry and then just share it, whatever was kind of on my mind or on my heart. So blogging for me and writing for me kind of started as just a hobby, just like a way to kind of cope. And then a few articles went viral. I think if you were to ask me, how do you make an article go viral? I'd be like, I don't know. It just happened. But that led to speaking, and it led to potentially a book proposal, things I just never would have dreamed of or even planned of. It just sort of happened that way. And then right as things started to take off, we suffered a miscarriage and then ended up moving from California to here, to Texas. And life since then has been, what's the word? I think if I were to summarize it in one word, I would say traumatic. It's been a really traumatic past couple years. So writing to me now has been more private in the past couple years with all that's happened. But I'm coming back out of the shell. I feel like I've been hiding in the shadows for a little while. So that's my writing journey. I'm just kind of putting stuff back out there online, just dipping my toes back into these passions that I have, but just kind of feeling my way back in. It's just
yeah.
the past couple of years took a toll.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we've talked about a few times in the writer's block is just the seasonality of writing, and that there are seasons of winter, right? Which is sounds like what you've been in, just a kind of a season of like healing, recovery, and
Hibernation. Yeah.
hibernation, kind of, and private. Like, I think writing is not always meant for public consumption, but I loved how you told your story, and that you were using writing as a tool to process a lot of the things that you were going through. And obviously there was a knack there, because a lot of your words kind of sprouted wings and took off. So you just recently relaunched a website, and you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So, like I said, when I first started writing, it was just a blog, just a WordPress blog. And I wanted to be creative. So some of it was about fashion, some of it was about hair, some of it was about motherhood, some of it was about, the gospel or whatever. I just kind of write whatever I wanted to write, and then was creative however I felt like. But it was never ever for, there was never really an aim to it. I didn't really have any intentionality behind it, besides I just wanted this creative outlet and it was kind of fun. Then, the past few years, I think with the toll that it's taken and just the life experiences that we've had, that quiet season that you're talking about, that winter season, the hibernation season, has created, I feel like I was at this crossroads where either I can just stay quiet and just no longer write, no longer share anything that I'm creating publicly, and just sort of, hang out with my rooster in the backyard and grow my little family and move on. It's it's the opposite, where it's made me more passionate and more fired up about the things of the Lord. And it was kind of this, which one do I go? Which way do I go? On one hand, one is easier, but I feel like there's constantly this burning in my heart of like, I want to share these things. I want to share whatever I have, whether it be tiny or big, with the world or with the Lord, or before the Lord. But it's just been this really tough kind of season of deciding what's next. And I think I've landed on this side of go big or go home. Like I want to do all that I can before the Lord, and not just kind of like what's the Bible verse where it's like you put your treasure in the ground. I don't want to just stuff, the
Mm.
things that I'm passionate about for the Lord away. So I revamped the website. I just finished it. Maybe it was like a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's been really fresh. I've sort of taken this culmination of all the things I'm passionate about and put it all in one place. And so it is still including things like hair and things like makeup and things like fashion, because I love those things. I'm really girly. But it's also a place where I can house that WordPress website as well, of like writing things that really matter, things that are really important to me. So there's some free giveaways on there now. There's some just different resources and tools and links to things that I love, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the gospel or anything to do with Jesus. Just these are things in life I love, and there's links to that. So it's special to me. I worked really hard on it.
It's
It was
really
a
beautiful
labor of
too.
love. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just trying to put into, a website, something tangible, all the things that swim around in my mind. It was kind of challenging, but it's been fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that it's just kind of this intersection of who you are, right? It's not all words, but it's the things that you really love and are passionate about. And the gospel hope is in there too. And I've spent some time looking around it, and it's really lovely and reflects you well. So I wanted to talk to you. So we kind of skimmed over the fact that you have 7 children. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. I have 4, and so I've always thought that wasn't like a nothing number.
What's
But
that? Yeah,
7 is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy to me. So,
it
and we
is
wanted,
for the record.
it's crazy to you too. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of children, but be fruitful and multiply. You've taken that quite
I obeyed.
literally. Yes, you obeyed. So I love too that you mentioned earlier, like you had 5 kids at the time that you just started scribbling down your words, right? Like you had your hands were probably very full. but you needed that outlet. So I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And the topic really that we wanted to discuss today was about expanding our capacity. Um, so before we get to that, can you just kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like for you in terms of like, how do you balance all of that? And maybe I don't think anyone else on this call right now live has that many children. But we all do bear weight and responsibility. So like, how do you look at that in your own life?
I mean, I'd have to go back to that season. We had our first 5 children were born in 6 years, and that was coming off 2 years of fertility treatment. So it was a shock to everyone, including our doctors. I remember having our first child, and they said, this is an enigma. We can't figure out, medically speaking, how this happened, because technically they gave us a less than 0% chance. My husband's a math guy. He's like, that doesn't even make sense. They can't say less than zero. So less than 0% chance to have children. And then back to back to back, here we have 5 and 6 years. So it's basically a baby every year. And he was in full-time ministry. Mars Hill Church functioned like a really fast-paced moving train. So it's not like that was a season where he was really available to me. So our family was growing, the church family was growing, and we were going kind of crazy. And I remember sitting on the floor, and I was painting a piece of furniture with white paint because I didn't like my dark furniture anymore. And I just had to do something creative. And the kids had walked in, and they'd gotten their feet in the paint, and they were walking around the house. And now I've got this massive mess on my hands. And I just remember crying. Like, I am so overwhelmed with life. I'm so overwhelmed with these children. I don't feel that Matt's in this season of availability to me. There's ministry needs, there's home needs, there's financial needs. Like, I am drowning. And I just remember the Lord being so kind to me in that season. And it was a time where I realized either I have to grow or I'm going to crumble. Like, there's no one that's going to come along and be like, let me do this job for you. It was my job. And it was something I prayed for years for, being infertile. I longed for this. And yet it was such a difficult season. My dog's trying to get in my room, so you're going to hear scratches. But that started sort of this idea of expanding plate size. And when I first threw out that term, in my mind, I was thinking of a plate, like a Thanksgiving plate. Like, how do you make the plate bigger and put more food on the plate? And I quickly realized that it's actually, that phrase is talking about plates on a weight bar. So if you're going to lift weights and you add on a plate, you're lifting heavier weight.
Mm.
And to me, that was the maybe physical example of what I needed to have happen in my heart and in my home and in my capacity level. I had to start lifting heavier weight. I had never run at a pace that fast before with that many children before. So I had to kind of learn the hard way through trial and error and a lot of tears. How do I carry this gift the Lord has given me? I don't want to wish it away, but this is too much for me to bear. How do I do this in a way that honors the Lord and honors this treasure that I've now been entrusted to care for? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful illustration because weightlifting is like you build muscle by tearing muscle,
Right,
right? The
right.
muscle has to break down in order to build up and get
It's so
stronger,
methodical, and there's a purpose in it. It's not adding weight just to throw it up there. It's
right?
adding weight so that you can grow in strength to serve the purpose that you actually need to do.
Yeah, and it's incremental too, right? You get it a little bit stronger at a time, and you start to be able to lift more. And I love that. I think that's such a great illustration. And I know in my own life, I have felt that from time to time, like, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do these things that you've given me to do. And so that is the prayer of those moments, right? When you're like, okay, God, I don't want you to take these things away. I need you to expand my capacity to bear up under
Right,
this, right?
right.
So, so as you have thought about that, like, it, is this a prayer that we should be praying often? And what does that prayer look like for you?
Well, for me, yes, it began in that season, but it's continued to expand. I think the Lord has answered that prayer. I do not at all agree with the phrase that God doesn't give us more than we can handle. I think he often gives us more than we can handle. And I
Mm,
think that's because he wants us dependent on him. And if we think we can handle it, we don't need him. We don't need his grace.
right.
We need that peace that passes all understanding. We've got it on our own. And I think the Lord is kind, and I think he's gracious, and I think he's steadfast, but I think he's purposeful to constantly give us more than we can handle so that we can grow. In my world, though, as a mom to now 7, I'm in mom world all the time, right? With mom friends all the time. And I think my passion for this started then, of just sheer necessity. I can't do the job the Lord's given me. I have to grow. But then as I watch and I observe, my own life included, but then others as well, I think moms often live in this state of constant chaos. Like we're tending to this need, attending to that need, and there's voices constantly, and it's all these mom, 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 and all these tasks and things to go to. And just before this call, I'm explaining to you all the things I have going on this week, that it's a never-ending season of busyness. But when I look at the gospel and I look at the bigger picture, the Lord says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And a lot of times I find myself so entrenched in my own stuff, I don't have the capacity for my neighbor. I don't have
Mhm.
the mindset to think of my, my lost neighbors that don't know Jesus, because I'm so busy rushing off to the next thing. So this passion has grown over the years. I'll tell this one other story too, because it's a big piece for me of my story of how this all came about. But I had gone to this business conference, and it was in Orange County. It was held at a church, and it was a Christian thing. And these, I'm not going to say their names, but it was a great little conference. But they came through and they were teaching Christian women how to start businesses. And the room was filled. It was a massive church there. The auditorium was filled with women who had amazing ideas for how to start businesses. And I went, of course, I'm a dreamer, I'm an entrepreneur. I love dreaming about things we could do, and things to start. All of that means a lot to me in my heart. So I went to this conference. I didn't know a single soul. I hate walking into a room where I don't know anybody. So I'm kind of sitting off by myself. Like it's an awkward thing. But they're teaching this time for a while and going through some of the content, and then they come to this break. And it's the break that every introvert hates, because you're like, now I have to talk to the person next to me, and I don't know them.
Yeah.
Anyway, this little group forms, and they're asking the question, what is it that you want to do? Why are you here? What are you passionate about? And I went and heard all the different things that these women were talking about. And, one of them wanted to start a boutique, and one of them wanted to start this online fitness company. And one of them, I mean, they just went around the room sharing such amazing, beautiful, life-giving ideas. And I sat there listening. And when it got to me, I gave my brief introduction. At the time, I had 5 children. And a couple of the moms are like, man, I can't even get my home in order, and I've only got 2 children. Well, I just had 1 baby and I can't think straight. And so they're talking about all these dreams and visions, and yet voicing how overwhelmed they feel in their home. And I thought, what are we doing then? Why are we here dreaming about all of these things we could do when we can't even manage our own homes?
Mm,
So that was really convicting to me. I've got all these dreams and all these passions, but if I can't handle my home first and foremost and primary, why would I add something on that's new? So to me, that's where the other puzzle piece came in, of like, I do have these passions. My whole life does not orbit around motherhood. Even with 7 children, my entire existence isn't about being just a mom, although that's a great thing. I really do want to be a part of the Great Commission, that raising up disciples, yes, in my own home, but being a part of that in the world as well. I have to gain strength in order to not only handle my home, but have the capacity to love others around me as well. So I do believe that's a prayer. I think you have to nuance it. Should it be for everyone? That sounds a little bit like a law. So I'm gonna be swift to say no. It's not some rule that would be put on the shoulders of an overwhelmed mom saying, go do more. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying I think the Lord is loving, and I think he's kind, and I think he's purposeful about seeking and saving the lost. And I think that there's something so beautiful when a mom can lift her eyes out of her own overwhelm and see the hurting one next to her, and see the neighbor that's never heard the name of Jesus, to be able to take a meal, to the friend who, really needs help as well. So, but if I come across in any way, like I'm saying, add more for the sake of adding more,
no,
not at all.
no, I don't think you sound that way at all. In fact, I think what I'm hearing you say is kind of different from what feels like the prevailing philosophy that I hear, which is get rid of stuff. Like, right? Like, don't take on more, protect your time, build in margin. And I think there's wisdom in all of those things. But like you said, like there are times when God calls us to might not necessarily remove responsibility from your life, but still says to you, love your neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't get to opt out of those things necessarily. And sometimes that requires addition and not subtraction, right? And I think sometimes the pendulum can swing too far in the opposite direction in the name of protecting time in such a way that we insulate ourselves from like being stretched, right? Like building that muscle
Right.
that requires us to lift heavier weight than what maybe we would prefer to do on our own.
Yeah, but I do agree. It's exactly what you said too. It's a both and. I think if we just start cutting all the things in order to be focused on just one thing, that there's so many things about it's your best yes, and you say no to all these other things so you can give your best yes here. I'm fully supportive of that. I do believe there's things though that could be cut. Um, in order to gain strength in the right way. So if you look at it in terms of working out, I'm not just going to go throw up a bunch of weight without knowing what muscle group I'm working and why. If it's the
Right.
same, just lifting weight to lifting weight, it's purposeless. So yeah, I would tell that person in the gym, like, take all this off. What are you doing? Like, put this weight. Are you lifting your legs? Are you lifting your arms? Like, what you're throwing it around? So if a woman finds herself in that state of just, there is so much going on, I can't even think straight. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going there. There would be a need to take off, but not just to take off. It would be then to put on purposefully, what is that yes? What are the things that will stretch me toward my ultimate end? And, if I were to coach a mom who's just feeling super overwhelmed, doesn't know where to begin, obviously it would be like, begin with prayer, just admitting, like, I'm overwhelmed and I need help. But the next step would be look at life from the end back toward now. So see the end from where you're at now. What do you want to be about? And if it is just surviving the season, I have trouble believing anyone would be like, I just want to get by. I just want to get by. Like if I
Right.
can live and that's the standard, if I can just keep people alive around me, like my kids don't die, then that's enough. I don't think any woman would truly say that. I think we would sit down and say, we value our neighbor. We value our lost friends. We value encouraging and building one another up. Like love and hurry cannot coexist. And if we're constantly living hurried, how do we love well? Even if it's taking things off in order to put things back on, there has to be intention to it, a purposeful reason to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that there's so much wisdom in what you just said. I think too about like Jesus and his disciples and in I think it's in Mark 1, Jesus calls his disciples to come away for a while and rest. And it said that they had no leisure even to eat. And then that is when the crowds follow Jesus and he feeds the 5,000. And I imagine if they were coming off of a season of real intense ministry, the last thing they probably wanted to do right then was to minister to a horde, a mass of people
Make
and
food for
feed
5,000. I don't even want
make
to make food for my 9 on Overwatch.
right. But it was in that season of rest that Jesus called them to serve, right? And then they saw this miraculous display of his deity and quickly followed by him walking on water, right? Like just over and over again, like Jesus is supplying not only the energy to do the tasks that are before them, but to get outside their comfort zones and do that and then be in awe, right? And just to stand back in awe and see what
Yeah.
Jesus does in those situations.
Yeah. I love how in Hebrews it talks about running the race. And my son is an athlete. We just did the state track meet this last weekend, and he's an exceptional athlete. And I think of him and how my other kids, every now and then will make cookies in the house, and he, the last few months, won't touch it. And I think about the shoes and how particular he is about, how he's stretching, how he's warming up, and to think of life as a race, to think of being intentional about every little thing. How can we live this well in order to run the race marked out for us, in order to bring glory to the Lord, in order to have an impact with those around us? It takes taking off in order to put on. He
Mm.
pushed himself for those runs and fought hard. And I think there's also a striving in the Lord that's healthy, that's good, that we would press into the things that are hard, press into the things that are challenging, stretch ourselves, just like an athlete. Just watching him fight for that. He couldn't have just taken all that off and then not strived,
Right.
Striven. Is it
They're
striven?
still
Strived. We're a bunch of
striven. Yeah.
whatever the word.
Strove. Maybe.
Weigh in, everyone. Comment.
Yeah.
But there is a striving, and all of his taking off was purposeful in order to run the race marked for him. And he wasn't distracted. There was one boy in one of his races that kept looking behind him. And we watched back the video and he's like, he's wasting energy. Even to look behind is a waste of energy, to press forward, to throw off every hindrance that encumbers us. I do strove. Thank you for that.
Strove.
That's enough.
That is a real word.
I'll remember that. But yeah, I just think about that in terms of life. Like, there is so much that can weigh us down. There's so much that's just unhealthy distractions, and get rid of that. Like, let's focus on the things that matter. What is it that we want to actually press into to be about? And what can we do practically in order to either lessen the load or handle the load, to grow in strength in order to be about the mattering things?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So many analogies about just the Christian life and athletics and striving after the prize, right? We don't beat the air aimlessly, but we beat our bodies and do the things that are hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means, yeah, getting outside our comfort zone, not necessarily always being able to take off, but when you can, and adding to and stewarding those things that God has given you to do those well. So yeah, we've talked a little bit about this idea of putting off and putting on, but what advice would you give to maybe a writer? I mean, we're here talking about writing, and especially, balancing that with, the desire to honor the Lord with our words. But we come up and butt up against real life, real challenges. So what might be some advice, even from your own life, or things that you try to do in those seasons when you want to be creative, but time is short?
Yes. Ooh, that is a good question. Because the reality is there are a lot of people that I tend to, and my husband, one of them. Like, he's my priority. He came first. He'll always come first. But then you've got these children too that require so much energy. The first 5 were born in 6 years, and then there was a 5-year gap, and then 2 little ones. So I've got older teenagers. My daughter is graduating from high school next week. And then I've got pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. And
Wow.
I call it my day job and my night job. I tend to my little all during the day. They get up at 6:30 and they go to bed at 7:30. And then my night job starts with my teens. And my daughter, she's a ballet dancer, and she gets home from ballet at 9:30. She eats dinner and showers, and she doesn't start homework till 10:30, and usually needs help. So when you talk about my time, that in order, and I mean that not by, going to watch a Netflix show. I mean, if I'm going to spend time writing, that usually begins at midnight or after.
Mm.
And I can't always do it. And I think part of life is realizing we are limited. We are human. We can't just say, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to lift 3,000 pounds. Like we were talking about in the very beginning, it's incremental. I can grow in things, but I also have to recognize, like you were talking about with Jesus, there's a time for rest. And if I'm not resting, if I'm not stewarding my own body, my own soul, writing does become less of a priority. I have to care first for what the Lord's given me to steward, which is my own body, my spouse, and my children, and my home. If I'm doing that well, and I've got the capacity after that to write, by all means, I'll write. And there's some times when I know in my heart I have something to put down, and rest does fall on the back burner. But if I make a habit of that, I'm not caring for my first area of stewardship, which is my own self. So for me in this season where it is so busy, a lot of times I've been tempted to write for the sake of writing. I have to do this. I have to turn this in. I'm preparing to speak at this and I have to do it. But that always seems to backfire if I don't tend first to my own soul. So just like stewarding my own body and caring for my people, I have to care for my soul. So if I'm not connecting with the Lord, what do I have to say if it's not rooted in Him? So for me, it really is, it's kind of like I've described it like playing cards. You know how if you're playing a card game and the ace trumps the jack and the jack trumps the eight and the eight trumps the four, it's putting them in order in the way that they should go. And writing every now and then will be like, okay, I have to get this out. It's on my mind, it's on my heart. But for the most part, it really is saying, let me keep first things first, and all these things will be added. But if I get all of this out of whack and I keep second things first, I lose it all, you know?
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's a really great analogy. And I think it kind of goes back to your story about the women in the business seminar, which are that, they're full of dreams, they're full of ideas. We often are, and we want to do all the things, but there's seasons, right? We were just talking about the need for seasons and a recognition of our seasons, and the order of your priorities really influences that. Once you get your home in order, your priorities in line, you do have more capacity somehow, some way. You do find those little pockets of time that you can invest in creative endeavors.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Rosemary said a lot of speakers on writing don't take that into consideration. Our first stewardship is our husbands, children, and ourselves, and then writing and creativity follows that. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, we do get those things flip-flopped from time to time.
Right, right.
Well, tell us too. I mean, I was doing a little snooping on your website and saw that you had written a book. So somehow in all of that, you managed to find some time for writing that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Ah, that is a labor of love as well. So back when I had the 5 kids and I thought, I've got to get stronger. I've got to be able to handle this. I started to look at life a lot differently. Instead of survival mode, it was creativity mode. I call myself a hacker because I'll find a way somehow to make this easier or that simpler or streamline this or find a way to handle that. So that book is one piece of the puzzle. So when you look at the website, I'm trying to basically put, like you said, all the different puzzle pieces of my life all in one place. Um, anyway, so I was going to say, when you start off writing and blogging, people are always telling you, find your niche, find your niche. And for a long time, people wanted to put me into like a mommy blogger pigeonhole. Like, well, you have all these kids, like only talk about motherhood, but life just doesn't work like that. Like there's a totality to life that doesn't involve just whether we were just talking about, I'm a wife too, and a pastor's wife. There's other things that I do, other hats that I wear that require a lot of time and energy and thought and prayer, just like my children do. I don't want to just be a mommy blogger. But for me to be a part of any of those things, I had to figure out, how does life work? So that book is kind of a compilation of my heart for motherhood, having been told we would never have children. But I always get really bothered when people give all of this heart on something and then never the practical. And because you're left thinking, okay, great, all of that's awesome, but how? Like legitimately, how do you do this? And so that book is about the practical parts of training my children in a way that is joyful, in a way that brings the family together. There are little tips and tricks that I learned along the way, like here's how to teach 5 children how to do the same thing. I remember one of the best compliments I was ever given. A person came into our home and all of my little children knew what to do and knew where to go. And she's like, your home runs like a well-oiled machine. And I was like, thank you. Like, that doesn't just happen. Like you have to intentionally teach them what's expected. And I remember walking through a parking lot, going to church. My husband's already there. He's pastoring, he's preaching that day. And I've got 4 little kids in tow and I'm carrying a car seat and toddlers going off this way and that way. And I think I can't even walk from my car to a parking lot. I have to teach my children how to do this because there's nobody's coming to help me. I have to figure this out. So they're just everything from how to not interrupt, how to obey the first time that you ask your children to do something, how to control their volume in every setting. I give tips and tricks on everything that you could possibly imagine. And that book has actually led to a lot of speaking events here locally for different moms groups where I get to sit in a room with women and say, okay, what is it? If you were to make a list of these are the things my children do that drive me absolutely crazy, that keep me spinning my wheels, overwhelmed all day, every day, we come up with really practical solutions for how she can teach her children out of that so that her children can also strengthen those growth muscles we're talking about in learning how to behave, learning how to obey, learning how to be proactive in our parenting. So it's been a really fun adventure. My oldest daughter, that's the senior, she comes with me to teach. And a lot of times people will ask her, what's it been like being raised with this type of parenting? And she's like, honestly, it's been fun because it's all games, it's all laughter, it's all joyful. And that's the name of the book. It's With All Joy. Like, let's teach our children in a way that's life-giving, how to actually be a part of the family and not have the family orbit around their chaos, you know?
Oh, that's so good. I remember when my kids were littler, like feeling all those same things, like just getting from point A to point B was such an ordeal. And I remember a similar thing where our pastor was talking about how like sometimes kids will just like reach across the table and grab whatever they want off of somebody else's plate. And he's like, you know, you can train them not to do that, right? Like, I think we think that, oh, that's just what kids do. But no, like what you're saying and what he was saying is like, that's our job. Like, we need to train our children in the way they should go. And it's so immensely practical and then such a blessing to your life and to those around you too.
Absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with teaching the mom how to train in a way that we keep coming back to these sports analogies, but if we don't practice, like what you just said, about manners at a restaurant table, that's in there as well as an idea. But how can you teach your children without practicing and rehearsing ahead of time? Like, I would never send my ballet dancer daughter up on a stage had she never rehearsed. I would never put a helmet on my son who plays football and send him out, be like, good luck, kiddo. But we do that all the time with our kids. We expect them to quote unquote perform when we've never taught them the life skill. And then we discipline them when they don't get it right. And that's not at all what this book is about. Like, my parenting strategy is 98% training, maybe 2% discipline or consequence. It's the last thing on my mind. If I see a child that's misbehaving or that's not doing what they ought, we set up another training exercise. So we were laughing about all sorts of examples because I knew I was going to be on this call today. So I was talking with the kids, like, what's been your favorite thing? And just the other day, we were in this gross bathroom at the track meet and everything was just nasty and there was toilet paper everywhere. And I was talking with my daughter, like the littlest one, she's the 4-year-old. I'm like, don't touch anything. And she goes, oh, find my spot. And she looked down on the floor, found a tile square, put her feet in it and put her hands by her side. She
That's
trained,
cute.
she knew the game because we've played that game on our tile in our kitchen, but she knew I was blown away. She knew what game would apply in that scenario when I didn't want her to touch anything. So if a 4-year-old can figure out and piece together what game equals what need I have in that moment, I think we way underestimate our children. They are so
I
stinking
agree.
smart.
They
You know,
are smart.
a 4-year-old, she's 4 and she did that, but it really is just playful and fun, teaching them this is what we need in the moment. There's another story too, where my oldest daughter, when she was really little, I was at the botanical garden in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I had run into some moms I wasn't planning on meeting. And there was this big grassy field, and on the opposite of that field was a massive lake. And there were ducks over there. And so I had 2 in a stroller greeting moms, and my Kate had started to wander off across the grass. And she kept going, kept going, kept going. And she was really close to the water. She was probably 2.5 or 3. And the moms around me noticed her and started to kind of panic. They started calling her name, Kate, 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 come back, come back, come back. I was like, wait, I was kind of troubled. Why are you worried? Like, she's gonna go in the water. And this is how helpful these skills are as a mom, where it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Motherhood doesn't have to be so chaotic. But in that moment, having had trained her in the methods that I present in that book, I called her name one time. She heard my voice. She turned to look straight at me. And then through sign language, I asked her, come. And she didn't miss a beat. She didn't continue to go. She didn't run to the left or to the right. She turned right back around, came back to me and was like, yes, mom. And I told her, hey, you're getting too close to the water. And those moms stood there like, there's no way that just happened. And she was not even 3. I mean, there's just a blessing in that where it
Mm,
frees me up from just having to scramble, like, oh my gosh, I have to keep them right by me. And you can train for everything that a child would need. And that is our job as moms, to go ahead of our children. And this ties right back into the capacity piece, but to have the capacity to look ahead of what's coming. My oldest daughter is now in a season of dating, and we have a whole different slew of conversations regarding training and dating and teaching her ahead of time what's coming your way, what to be mindful of. We role play scenarios. If this happens, what do you do? And she feels prepared in life. She feels loved, that somebody else is thinking about what she might be going through. But that starts way back, you know,
yeah.
way
Yeah,
back.
begin with the end in mind,
Yeah.
right? Because that is exactly. And I was thinking too, as you're describing 3 and 4-year-old behavior, like what a joy that will be when they are teenagers because they have learned to
Yeah.
respond to your voice right away, immediately. And that's another thing. I think we don't expect our kids to obey. And
Yeah.
so therefore when they do, people are like, what did I just see happen? And that's another thing that we
Yeah.
can train our kids for. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of wisdom. So good. Well, I want to give the ladies on this call an opportunity to feel free to unmute, turn your cameras on if you can, um, and or just drop in the chat if you have any thoughts or questions for Meg.
Well, I haven't had a chance to dive into your website and look at your book and all that. I'm really excited to do that. So I don't have questions off the top of my head, but I'm really excited to have some.
Oh, great. You email me anytime.
Yeah.
Do.
Hi, Meg. I was looking around your website while you're talking,
Yay.
and it looks like so much fun. I love how you use your middle name because when I hear Meg Wallace, I think of being a kid and biography with Mike Wallace.
Oh,
So when you put in the Marie, it just, I like that.
makes it a little softer. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I was wondering if your With All Joy book has any advice for teenagers, or is it all for younger kids?
You know, it is for younger kids. When I go around and speak, I feel like what I want to do, if I'm honest, is redo another edit of the book, because as I've prepared speaking content, I include in the speaking part a lot about the heart of the father. And I didn't put that in there, but then now I have teenagers. I have 4 of them now. So there is a lot about those teenage years, that not only does that early stage training impact, but it's training on a different level. And I have a lot to say about it. I feel so passionate about it. I've just not had that experience with my teenagers. 3 of them are boys, 1 of them is a girl, that I begrudge the teenage years. I love them. But training looks very different. We were given advice many years ago when I think I only had 3 or 4 at the time, but somebody had given us advice: when your kids are teenagers, when they're ready to talk, you've better be ready to talk. It doesn't matter what time it is, but you got to be ready. And I've taken that to heart. I remembered that little piece of advice. And sometimes my kids are not ready till 1 in the morning. But if that window of opportunity presents itself, I am I am no longer tired. I am rubbing my eyes, like grabbing that cup of coffee, because if they're ready, I better be ready. Otherwise, that little open window of connection with them is gone. It's fleeting. And so that training time looks a lot different. I don't sit them down and say, okay, we're going to train for this now and let's go practice that. That training time is a lot more like a coach, like coaching, and a lot of just wisdom talk of like looking at the word together and talking through issues that come up and things they observe in their friends, and being able to use that as a breeding ground for conversation. And I think I need either another book or another edit or something. There's got to be a way to write about that. Maybe like second edition or part 2. I don't know, but
Yeah. An appendix.
really,
The
we're talking
struggle
about,
is real.
yes, but there's that book is mostly for young children, but really you can train when they're babies. I mean, right off the bat, when they come home from the hospital, they're learning about the world around them. And to take that premise from the very, very, very beginning, earliest days, all the way up now to my almost 18-year-old, it's training at every single stage, at every single level. It never stops. It's not just for little ones, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good question,
Maybe it will be
Rosemary.
coming.
I think
Yeah,
a
you
lot
don't
of
have
us
to
here
hear-
are dealing with those teen years for sure.
Yeah, parenting teens was easier to me than parenting grown-up children, that's for sure.
Mm,
So you've got a couple of books in you that you're going to need to be writing.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yes. I actually do have another book that's going out there, but it's actually on suffering. I'm talking more about the trauma that we've lived through. You can probably dig around on my Instagram and on my blog and find it. But I don't want to lead from that place anymore. But man, we have learned so much through suffering these last few years. So I'm hoping that I can jump ship and talk about the goodness and grace of the Lord through seasons of hardship and the gift of lament, and not just focus on parenting, although that is a passion. It is not my only passion, but the book proposal was sent back. They want me to redo one of my chapters, and so I've got to find the time to redo that and then turn it back in. So definitely something to be praying about in the near future. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so cool to hear you say that too, just that, this is just one lane in which you really feel like you can speak to, but that other lane of coming through a real season of hardship will speak to a totally different audience. And well, maybe some of the same, but it would be a wider net, right? It would cast out wider, and just what you guys have lived through. And I know a little bit of it. I've listened to some interviews from your husband, and so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Yeah, it's a traumatic story, and quite frankly, one we're still living in. We're in I say San Antonio, which is where we live, but we're north of there. It's more country, and it's small town. And yeah, it's been a terrible, terrible story that we're still dealing with the aftermath of. So that's been really interesting when we talk about this training of training my kids up. It's not just to obey. It's not just to listen to my command and obey whatever I'm asking them to do. It is training in righteousness, and how to love those who have been unkind, and how to bless our enemies and pray for those who persecute. And we're talking about training I never anticipated doing. I thought, my book on training was about, go upstairs and grab your toothbrush and, go potty and meet me in your room to go to bed. Like it's next level, the last few years of trying to teach my children rock solid biblical truth of this is how we will serve and worship the Lord through fire. And not fun lessons, but man, it's created a sweet bond between us all of,
Mm,
I've said it jokingly and I really do mean it, but if you want a close-knit family, suffer together, because you're having different conversations than what you would normally ask for, but
so true. So true. I was just before this call was teaching the book of First John at my Bible study, and in First John, I think it's in chapter 4, it says that they will know that you're believers because you obey and you keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome, right?
Mhm.
And so the fact is not only just to obey, but to do it with the right heart posture, the right attitude of these are not burdensome, and living that out in front of our kids. That's that's theology in real life, right? Playing out in front of them for sure.
right, right. Yeah.
Wow. Any other questions for Meg?
So is the new book that you're writing, or the one that is in the process of getting published right now, you're talking about the trauma and the suffering and how you guys are in the process of recovering from that? Is that what that is?
Yes. So well, I'll just fully disclose where the thing's at. So it's not been picked up by a publisher. There's two
Okay.
companies that are looking at it now. Both of them, independent of one another, had the same feedback. So the first chapter was kind of an overview of where we're headed in the book. And then the second chapter was our story.
Mm.
And it's long and it's hard and there's so much in it. And so you can go to my website and click on the blog part that says, it's a post that says our story. I think there's a search button you can look for it too. That's only the first half. And then there's a part 2, and what Kara was talking about, you can listen to my husband's podcast. He shared about it from his perspective. There is so much in there. How do you possibly summarize that in one chapter?
Mm.
So both of these publishing companies came back and said, we need you to not put it all in one chapter. It's too much, but maybe break it up and put pieces of that story throughout the whole book. So it's not just an overwhelming experience for the reader as it was overwhelming for us to read.
Mhm.
So I just have to lessen it in the beginning. So it will be about that. But my heart in that is to talk about lament, which is kind of a dangerous topic as a writer. Nobody wants to talk about suffering. Nobody wants to talk about lament. Nobody wants to talk about how difficult and challenging life is. But yet that is the reality so much of us have, is life is hard. And this didn't go at all how I planned. And my life's on a trajectory I never would have asked for. So it really is just been this season of really digging into the Psalms and learning about lament, learning about when the Bible speaks of a song in the night, of how when we meet with Jesus in the darkest of times, in the middle of the night, he connects with us in ways we wouldn't have in seasons of comfort. And yet we can offer that to a lost and dying world that needs hope. Like we need hope right
Mhm.
now. There's just so much going on. So my heart is for those of us that have felt that we've been in seasons of winter, seasons of overwhelm, to lift our eyes through the gift of lament, seeing that the Lord is in control. He has us in all circumstances, and then setting our eyes on that great commission of like, okay, no matter what my circumstances are, how will I honor the Lord and speak of his glory and grace to those who don't yet know him? So that's the hope. And I actually get to speak at a women's conference starting Thursday in Albuquerque. So I'll be flying there to speak on this topic. So we'll see how it goes, but
That's beautiful. Well, I think a lot of times people don't want to write about suffering because they don't know how to
get out
offer
of it.
hope in that.
Mm.
And by offering hope, and I just spoke at a conference last weekend, and our key verse was 1 Peter 5:10, and in the New Living Translation it says, in God's kindness, and after you have suffered for a season, he will restore, support, and strengthen you. And that season could be a week, it could be a year, it could be, 5 years, it could be a lifetime. We don't know in God's timing, but just the fact that we have the hope of the restoration is huge.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
nobody wants to be able to speak from the Job perspective of Job, right? But we
Right.
learn so much from those seasons of suffering. I appreciated what you said, Meg, about like growing together as a family. You need to suffer together. We've experienced that as well. And in the moments, you're like, I would do anything to get out of this. Like, where is the closest exit? And yet, looking back, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it because of the sweet fruit that comes from that suffering, not only in my heart, but in my children's hearts and in my husband and in my marriage. Like, what sweet things come from that. So, yeah,
exactly.
we don't want to write that book, right, Meg? But it's been
Right.
written in your life, I think.
I do too. I have this literary agent, and she's like, do you think maybe, because things keep happening and I keep missing deadlines of turning stuff back in because the story continues to unfold even now. She's like, do you think maybe next time you could pick to write on the topic of Disneyland? The Lord makes you an expert, right? And whatever it is he's wanting you to become knowledgeable in. And she's like, do you think maybe you could pick something happier? I'm like, yeah, I think I probably should.
Yes.
But it's exactly what you said. I mean, I remember going through those years of infertility thinking, I hate this. I mean, every month longing for this baby that didn't exist. And then to be told you will never have children of your own. It was so devastating. Well, little did I know I would have 7. But that season of suffering through infertility, there's not a day that goes by I don't remember.
Mm.
And the days that are hard and the days that are grueling and the days the voices don't stop and the days the needs never end and the days I'm up 24 hours, 48 hours in a row, the days that just drain me. I remember those days of longing for this. Like, this is a gift, no matter how hard it gets. I desired this. I longed for this. And it has radically shaped my entire motherhood journey. And I think of what you said with Job. If we were to peel back the curtain, and I know you typically don't want to do this when handling scripture, but if we were to insert our name into the earliest conversation of Job, the conversation about Job by God the Father and Satan, have you considered my servant Meg? The only reason she worships you is because you've given her blessing. And the Lord's saying that's not true. Test her, sift her.
Mm.
Do we truly believe like that would we really worship the Lord if all was taken? Well, after walking this season, the past few years, I know without a doubt the answer is yes. And I don't know that I would have said that before this season, but I will put my stake in the ground no matter what comes my way. I will worship the Lord. And to think that there might be something at stake in believers putting their stake in the ground, no matter what comes my way, I will worship you, Lord. Heaven hung on Job's response, waiting to see how would he handle this. And I think if we had a glimpse of what could potentially be going on in a heavenly realm of a believer saying, I will worship him. Blessed is his name. He gives, he takes away, no matter what, I will bless his name. There's something about that the world would look at and say, that's peculiar.
Mhm.
Is that? And
Mhm.
that's my biggest passion of all, of saying, okay, like our circumstances are not at all how we would have dreamed them up to be, how we would have planned for them. But the Lord is not just good for one day. We get to know him now in the midst of all of this craziness and get to walk with him in real time now. And just like you said, we would not trade it for all the riches in the world. It's been so sweet. I mean, hard. I mean, I can't deny how hard it's been, but also really precious as well.
Mm. Well, I want to buy that book.
Ah,
So
just
you
pray.
keep us up to date on that book. I'm beyond the potty training, but I need that book. I think we all do.
Oh, I do too. I need to read it. Need to read it myself.
Oh, this has
Something the
been
Lord does though when we write, right? I mean, it bursts out of you
oh,
things, right? That you're like, I needed that. You see it back and like, oh, that was the Lord speaking to me. I didn't really actually write that. That was the Lord writing it to me.
absolutely. I love that. And you process and you learn and you grow in that process of writing it out too. I'm sure as you look back and you relive some of those hard days, you see God's faithfulness and his hand in it.
And it's easy too, I think, to see the lies you believe, because I think with writing, there is such a gift in the delete button. You can write something and realize that is not the heart of the Father. Delete it, write it again. Ooh, getting closer, but that is still not the heart of the Father. And then write it. That is the heart of the Father. And it makes me more nervous to speak at events because I don't have the delete button.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, that didn't come out right. But I'm growing and encouraged. But
Oh, well, thank you, Meg. This has been super sweet and really like we've covered a lot of topics, but just really, really a sweet time. Just hearing your heart, hearing what God's done in and through you, how he's using you, your words, both written and spoken. So
thank you.
we're really grateful to have had you on the block.
Oh, it's so good to be here. Thanks for including me. It's really a gift. I mean, just to sit with women who love to write, love Jesus, love their families. It's a joy. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thanks.
Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.